Right now on Currents News, we are 1 day away from the Pope's trip to Iraq. A look at the status on the ground as the country deals with violence and COVID-19.
E giungo tra voi come pellegrino di pace.
The Holy Father sending Iraqis a message ahead of the journey. He wants to bring hope and peace to the country. And the cardinal in Iraq says the country has already changed after hearing about the papal trip. We hear more from him straight ahead. Preparations are underway in Iraq ahead of the Pope touching down. Banners and signs welcoming the pontiff line the streets. Heavy security measures are also in place to protect the Holy Father during the first papal trip to the country. Good evening, I'm Christine Persichetti. Pope Francis is about to fulfill a promise made to one of the world's oldest Christian communities, despite a spike in the coronavirus and security worries. An investigation into the latest rocket attacks points to an Iran-backed paramilitary force with a history of targeting Americans. Currents News' Emily Drooby has more about the current situation on the ground.
New rocket attacks in Iraq are complicating an already tense situation as Pope Francis embarks on his historic trip to the region. The pontiff not backing down on his promise to, quote, meet the martyred church in the land of Abraham.
Preghiamo perché questo viaggio si possa fare bene.
10,000 security forces will be deployed to protect the Holy Father during his 3-day visit. On Wednesday, a U.S. contractor died after 10 rockets were fired at an air base in western Iraq. The attacks were in response to U.S. airstrikes along the Syria-Iraq border just days ago. Retaliation for Iranian-backed militia strikes on coalition forces in central Iraq and on U.S. air bases in the North Kurdistan region.
We will never hesitate to use force when American lives and vital interests are at stake.
The escalating violence has experts like Stephen Cook worried about the country's stability.
The problem is that Iraq is suffering from not just a political breakdown, but also the violence of Iranian-sponsored militias, as well as a return of the Islamic State.
COVID infections are a concern too, with 2,500 new infections reported each day. Iraq's shaky healthcare system could be overwhelmed. A partial shutdown and curfews have been imposed to curb the numbers.
We are afraid of our family, ourselves from this new virus.
The Vatican says it's aware of the challenges in taking precautions, limiting public gatherings and urging the faithful to watch the Holy Father walk their ancient lands online or on TV if necessary. But the importance of the papal visit is clear. Aid to the church in needs, Edward CLANCY says. They're on the ground in Iraq helping to rebuild a war-torn country.
There are many reasons why the Pope is visiting Iraq. First and foremost might be that it is the birthplace of the three great religions in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. It is a perfect place for where Christians still are and still have somewhat of a stronghold for the Pope to visit to offer hope.
Hope for a tiny sliver of Christians decimated by years of ISIS violence. They make up just 1% of the population and trending downwards. Still, the prospects of the pontiff's visit has them overjoyed. It's not just the impact on the Christian population. Iraq is ethnically and culturally diverse, but Shiite Muslims still make up about 70% of the country. The key to keeping the peace will be bridging religious differences.
One of the messages that the Pope will have is about tolerance. He's not only going to visit the Christian communities of Iraq, but he's going to meet with the most important Ayatollah in Iraq, the leader of the Shia community, Sheikh Ayatollah Sistani, will have an important impact.
Peace, respect, dignity, all messages Pope Francis hopes to bring to a fractured nation in what he calls an act of love for this land, its people, and its Christians.
Whenever the Pope is able to go there and show that all people have dignity, that even this small community of Christians have dignity, but then to reach out to the other groups, the Yazidis, the other smaller sects of Islam, that all are treated equally, or all were treated with respect. I think it's a wonderful opportunity to highlight this is what Christianity is all about.
Emily Drooby, Currents News.
The Holy Father will have plenty on his schedule when he touches down. He'll visit 6 cities in 3 days, planning to sit down with top Shia religious leader Grand Ayatollah Ali al-Sistani. Their meeting is being seen as a way to help secure the small Christian population in Iraq. The pontiff will also visit the site where the worst single massacre of Iraqi Christians ever occurred. On October 31st, 2010, terrorists burst into Our Lady of Salvation Church in Baghdad and killed 58 people. Blast walls that surround the church are covered with murals of Pope Francis ahead of him being there Friday. Parishioners hope the Holy Father's visit will mend the wounds of that day. Top Catholic leaders in the country say Iraq is already changing ahead of the Pope's visit. Iraqi Cardinal Louis Sacco said in an interview with Vatican News, the Holy Father's journey has sparked a shift in society.
The masses and the meetings in Baghdad, Erbil, Karakosh, Mosul, and also the Pope will focus on the fraternity, as we know.
Do you think Iraq could become an example of reconciliation in the Middle East?
This is a hope.
Cardinal Sacco says another focus of the journey will be fraternity, highlighting the Pope's trip to the birthplace of Abraham. As for the future of Christians who already left Iraq, some say they don't want to come back. Others who stayed still want to leave, even as they await the Pope's arrival. In a stadium in Erbil, rehearsals are underway for Pope Francis's upcoming visit. Christianity's roots run deep here, but the population is dwindling. An ISIS mortar killed 4-year-old David Shmas in 2014 outside his home in Karakosh. His mother, Doha, sees no point in staying.
If someone will take us away, I'll be the first one to emigrate.
Over the last century, revolutions, chaos, oppression, and intolerance have driven many Christians abroad. In the last 20 years, however, it's gone from bad to worse, culminating in ISIS's reign of terror. The group gave Christians a choice: pay a tax on non-Muslims, convert, flee, or die. Chaldean Archbishop of Erbil, Bashar Warda, says the Muslim majority in the Middle East remains indifferent to the plight of minorities and says Iraq's diversity is fast disappearing.
What's frightening me is that during this period, no one have asked what we, for example, have lost when we have a declining number of the Mandaiyin, for example, and now Yazidis. Christians.
21 years ago, Sabah Zaytoun moved to Sweden. He's back in Erbil for a visit. Those who have left, he says, have left for good.
I don't think anyone will return from Europe, he says. That would be difficult.
This will be the first time a pope has stepped foot in this land where Christians and so many others have suffered so much for so long. Their voices, they hope, finally being heard. Currents News and The Tablet will have all-inclusive coverage of the Pope's trip to Iraq beginning Friday. Besides our news coverage, Net TV will be airing various parts of the Pope's trip in full. On Friday, after Currents News, we'll air the Pope's meeting with local bishops and priests. On Saturday, they'll air the Pope's Mass at the Chaldean Cathedral in Baghdad at 2 p.m. And on Sunday at 3 p.m., the Holy Father's Mass at the Franco Hariri Stadium in Erbil. Then on Monday, also after Currents News, Net TV will air the farewell ceremony as the Pope leaves the country. Now to the big stories here in the United States. The House of Representatives is canceled today after Capitol Police say there was a threat to breach the building. Despite that, the House managed to pass a voting rights bill, one of the biggest overhauls to elections in a generation, and a police reform bill in memory of George Floyd. It would ban chokeholds and alter qualified immunity for officers. The Supreme Court is making it harder for undocumented immigrants to fight deportation. Also, appointments are now open to get the Johnson & Johnson vaccine in New York. The White House is sidestepping questions about the Equality Act and whether the White House will force doctors to perform abortions and gender reassignment surgeries despite their belief.
What does President Biden, say about those concerns?
The president's been
a long supporter of Roe v. Wade. It has been his consistent belief that should be law, and he will fight to continue to protect that as being law.
Conscience concerns is not a concern of his?
No, I think, again, I'm just going to state what the president's policies are.
On Tuesday, the White House press secretary was also asked if President Biden would maintain the Conscience and Religious Freedom Division at the Department of Health and Human Services. She said reporters would have to talk to the future secretary of that department. At the same time, Democrats are hoping to remove pro-life protections from the 2022 federal budget. Pro-abortion legislators sent a letter to President Biden asking him to eliminate the HYDE amendment from the budget. The policy restricts the use of taxpayer money for elective abortions in the U.S. and abroad. The HYDE amendment was first enacted in 1976, and the pro-life Charlotte Lozier Institute says it has since saved more than 2.4 million lives. In recent years, an increasing number of Democrats have pushed to repeal the HYDE amendment, including President Biden, who once supported the policy. Coming up, back to our big story, the Pope's trip to Iraq, his first in 15 months. We'll speak with our journalists who will be providing exclusive coverage of the journey from the ground. And the pontiff will meet with the top Shia religious leader in Iraq. We have the significance of the meeting.
There are now some big changes to the tablet website. You can get personalized access to the Catholic news you value. Sign up for free at thetablet.org.
Some finishing touches as the sun sets in Baghdad tonight. Come tomorrow, Pope Francis will become the first pontiff to ever touch down in Iraq. And Inez San Martin, Rome Bureau Chief at Crux, will be with the Holy Father every step of the way, providing exclusive coverage to Currents News and the Tablet all weekend long. She joins us now from Rome before takeoff on the papal plane. So Inez, you're traveling with Pope Francis for the first time in a long time. How is this trip different?
It's different in many ways. It's been 15 months since we have been on a plane with the Holy Father, but without a doubt, what makes it the most different is the fact that due to COVID restrictions, we're not expecting any crowds. One would have thought, it's Iraq. There are 300,000 estimated Christians left in this country, yet there are still hundreds of thousands who would like to see the Pope, regardless of their faith, and they won't be able to. And that's, without a doubt, the biggest difference.
So what kind of precautions are being taken? Did you have to get tested before traveling? What else?
Yes, we actually, I consider it a blessing. We were vaccinated in order to be able to fly with the Holy Father. The Vatican made sure that everyone flying with the Pope had the vaccine, if nothing else, so that we could reduce the risk of, being spreaders of the virus to Iraq. On the second, another step that is being taken, again, crowds have been heavily reduced. The final Mass in Erbil is going to be held in a stadium that has a capacity for 40,000 people, but only 10,000 faithful will be allowed in. And that will, without a doubt, give a sad picture in many ways of, this final Mass that is supposed to be beautiful and overcrowded. But due to COVID, one would actually hope it's going to be, almost empty, or, have the social separation left.
Right, you have to be safe. What about the recent missile attacks Emily spoke about in her story earlier? Are you worried about your safety being in Iraq?
Personally, I am not. I have been blessed to be able to go to Iraq twice, granted both cases in the northern region of Kurdistan in Erbil, and to the Nineveh Plains, covering the situation right after the rise of ISIS in 2014 and then again in 2018 after the fall of the Islamic State. And it's a complicated country, yes, but I've been blessed again to go with the Pope to Central African Republic, and I don't feel more afraid now than I did back then when we actually had a semi-mandatory training of journalism at war.
After the violence, Pope Francis refused to cancel his trip, saying he doesn't want to disappoint the people of Iraq. He said it was a dream trip Pope John Paul II couldn't take. So what's the significance of this visit?
There are 1,000 things that make it extremely significant, but if nothing else, it's the fact that Pope Francis is going to become the first Pope in history to go back to the land of Prophet Abraham considered a father for all believers. It is just for that little element, it is a historic trip. Then there are 1,000 different aspects that make it important, including, of course, the fact that he's meeting with the Shia leader, Ali al-Sistani, Grand Ayatollah in the city of Nahaf. That is in itself also historic, and many would argue worth the trip. But without a doubt, is his support to the Christian community what makes this trip specifically important.
All right, Inez San Martin, Rome Bureau Chief at Crux. Thanks for joining us and have a safe trip.
Thank you very much.
Like we've mentioned, one of the Pope's biggest moments will come when he meets the spiritual leader of Iraq's Shia Muslim community, Ayatollah Ali al-Sistani. The two are expected to make a statement on interreligious tolerance and dialogue. Omar Mohammed, a blogger from the Middle East who documented much of ISIS's destruction, says this is important for Iraq's Christian population.
I've seen what happened to the religious minorities in Iraq, and the only way is to open the door between Islam and the Christianity for a sustainable, long-term dialogue.
His Holiness will meet al-Sistani in the city of Najaf this Saturday. One Catholic charity has announced a new program to support Christian students living in Iraq. Aid to the Church in Need is donating 1.5 million euros, funding scholarships for 150 students at the Catholic University of Erbil for the next 4 years. It's the only Catholic university in the country, and most students are refugees from other parts of Iraq. When we get back, there's still a lot to unwrap about the COVID-19 vaccine. The Bishop of Brooklyn got his. If you're still deciding if the shot is for you, listen up. And one Catholic school student is at the top of his class and may just be one of the smartest kids in the country. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number, 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. Have you gotten the COVID vaccine? And should you? The Bishop of Brooklyn has some advice on the matter. He's with the former Tablet editor, Ed Wilkinson, and they're talking about that now on this edition of Into the Deep. Ed.
Thank you, Christine. And Bishop DiMarzio is with us today, and we're going to talk about the vaccine for COVID virus and how it's affecting the diocese here. Bishop, the Pope Francis looks at this as a moral issue. He says that people have an obligation to get vaccinated to protect themselves and to protect others. Do you look at that as a moral issue?
Yeah, I think the Holy Father is really on target because we need to protect ourselves. That's one of the commandments. Thou shalt not kill. That means that should not endanger your own life. And you don't want to hurt others. It's still part of that commandment. So yes, we do have a responsibility, moral responsibility. It's a little more complicated because of the origin of some of the testing and the development of these vaccines. But the Holy See has already talked about that the connection between any aborted fetus and the vaccine is such a tenuous one. It's morally acceptable.
Well, I know when I got my shot, I felt a little bit better, more protected. And I read in the tablet that you got your 2 shots already.
Yes.
Were there any side effects for you?
No, I was fortunate. I didn't feel anything.
We have a lot of senior priests here in the diocese, and we have a residence out in Douglaston for senior priests. Are we doing anything, making any accommodations to make sure that they're protected and that they get the vaccine?
Yes, we originally tried to get the vaccine there, but we were not able to do that. So they all who wanted to be vaccinated was able to be gotten out for appointments. So it seems like that everyone who wanted to be vaccinated was. There's some with some underlying conditions that it was difficult for them, so they're not. But we still, I think we would have herd immunity out there by having the vast majority vaccinated.
Yeah. It would seem that parishes would be a good center to have inoculations, but I haven't heard of many parishes buildings that are being used for this.
We had recommended to the city. They asked us if we have sites, and I think we recommended 6. We actually met more than 6, but they chose 6 that they said they could be used. But we still, to date, have not been asked to give them over. It's free again. It's not with a fee, but we try to accommodate. But doesn't seem like they needed them.
What's your assessment, Bishop? Should we be hopeful? Is this a light at the end of the tunnel now for this pandemic?
I think so. It's still going to be a while till everyone's vaccinated. People should take it seriously and help the effort.
Good. Okay, Bishop, thanks for being with us today.
Well,
Christine, now we're going to send it back to you at the news desk.
Thanks, Ed and Bishop DiMarzio. One Catholic school student is going above and beyond in the classroom and received a top award from Johns Hopkins University. Emily Drooby spoke with him in Flushing and has more.
Brandon Park is a talented student, and he has the award to prove it. It started with a test.
And a little while after, my mom told me that I got the highest honor.
That highest honor, called Grand Honors, given by the Johns Hopkins Center for Talented Youth during this year's talent search. The award, not a shock for his teachers at St. Andrew Avellino Catholic Academy in Flushing, Queens. Were you surprised at all when you heard about the award?
No, not at all. He's an exceptional student.
Brandon was up against 15,000 students from 7 grades across the country, earning the award by scoring in the top 9%, winning a medal, bragging rights, and access to a special program.
With the award came entrance to the Johns Hopkins summer school. I think it'll really help me.
The 6th grader and his mom both credit his time at St. Andrew Avellino for the win.
The teachers take time to get to know us, and they take time to make sure that we really understand the subject.
While teacher Kevin Monahan credits Brandon.
Of course, I give plenty of credit to all of the teachers and staff at St. Andrew Avellino, but I got to give Brandon the bulk of the credit for this one. He's a very driven student, so I'm sure that anything he takes on outside of the classroom, he's able to succeed in.
This school is a very close-knit community. Principal Deborah Hanna says it's been amazing to watch Brandon turn into the child he is today.
To watch a child come from a public school and very quiet and meek and grow into a young man and then be given an award, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
Brandon says he dreams of one day attending a well-known college. He says he wants to do something great with his life, and it looks like he's on track. In Flushing, Queens, Emily Drooby, Currents News.
Congrats, Brandon. And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.